Welcome to another episode of the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. I'm Tom Shellcross. With me, as always, is Mark Ainley. Mark, what do you got cooking over there?
Like I said before, I don't have too much cooking. You have the excitement investor lifestyle right now. And I'm curious to hear what you are doing right now. We're recording this in the beginning of September. What are you doing to prepare for the winter or overshoot the winter to make sure that your flips and your rehabs are lining up for next year?
Well, you way to turn the question around, man. Way to dodge.
Like I said, my life's boring. You got to do it. You got to carry me, man.
So we're fortunate. We're pretty well positioned for a spring market launch because a lot of our jobs are 300K, 400K. Like they're very extensive rehabs that take, with the city involved and pulling permits and doing everything by the book, it's going to take 6 months, 7 months, whatever that may be before it's ready. So since about, call it July, we have tried to acquire as much as we can, getting ready for that spring market, which I would call anything after Super Bowl Sunday, right? Like we want a bunch of jobs that we're wrapping up January, February, and they're all going to launch springtime. So we try to avoid, like right now, I would be hesitant or I would underwrite differently if I was a 40K rehab that we'd be done and it would hit in like November. Right. Like we're probably avoiding that situation right now, unless the numbers really, really make sense and you can pack that in. Now, all that being said, that didn't really matter last year. Right. So I don't know what this winter is going to hold, but historically, like we really try to ramp up, work through the winter, understand there's going to be delays and then hit that spring market.
So in this economy, though, not in this economy. So where we're at right now, you can call it in this, what's the word I'm looking for? In this real estate market, I guess. We've been going up for many years. Like how your risk and all that stuff carrying something for that long and that many, like, I know you're a very conservative person. Like what are you doing? Like if something changes, like how are you hedging yourself?
The margin's got to be solid.
Gotcha.
You got to be sitting there. If I'm thinking this thing's going to sell at 1.3 and it only sells at 1.5, what happens? Right. You got to be sitting there saying, I'm still okay with this. Okay. Right. So you can't look at it. You got to look at it two ways. Like, what is the actual money you're going to make? But more importantly, like what happens on a 10% drop? On those bigger flips, 10% drop could be a lot of money. So what happened? 15% drop? Like what happens? At what point do I do all this work and actually pay money? And this is things that's total disaster.
So you're just building enough profit into these deals to be able to, your worst case scenarios might keep you at break even or a couple of bucks.
It's worst case. And it's also, I mean, we're well capitalized. It's a different market. If this was your first rodeo, I wouldn't say go out and do this, right? Like we're a little bit more aggressive and we can take, at least in my opinion, we can take a little bit bigger risk and swing a little bit bigger because, we're well capitalized. We can weather a storm if it hits.
Good answer. And everyone listening, that was not even scripted. So that was really, really well answered.
Well, thanks, Mark. Maybe I'll be on a podcast one day. So what do we got for the housing provider tip of the week?
All right. So housing provider tip of the week. We've been dealing with this. I don't know if it's just been recently or people have not been paying attention to this, but driveways, replacing an asphalt driveway, especially with the increases lately, is really expensive. And just the maintenance and keeping up with it, whether it be every 2 or 3 years that you're seal coating it, will extend your life of your driveway or your parking lot it could be up to words of a decade by spending a few $100s every few years just seal coating it. So whether it's a DIY job of seal coating it, or you hire one of the guys that are driving by on the weekends with some extra tar, or you're just calling up a company and getting it, I would definitely always advise that you're keeping your driveways and your blacktop areas up to speed. And then also with these winters, they do a lot of wear and tear on these, and that just makes it all more important that every couple of years every 2-3 years, you're seal coating and striping your driveways.
Look at you dropping some knowledge, dropping some nuggets.
Nice. Well, we'll bring in our guest here. I'm pretty excited about this one today. He's a big time.
Let's do this. All right, man. We got a Mike Glasser referral. How big is that? we got a heavy hitter coming on. So I guess anyone with 2,000 units under their belt, I'm going to pay attention to what he or she has to say. So our guest today, since 2003, he has shepherded Becovic, his company, through a 500% growth. Went from 400 units to 2,000 and growing. Has 50 employees under him. He's like a lot of our guests who've been successful, ingrains himself in the community. He's a member of several industry organizations, the Edgewater Uptown Building Association, the NBOA, the Chicago Apartment Association, the Roger Parks Builder Group, which I believe he's a director, and then also a Northern Illinois Husky grad. Want to make sure we mention that one here. So without further ado, Sal Becovic, welcome to the show. Sal, I probably sold you a little short there, but hopefully you're ready to dabble into the Edgewater, Uptown Rogers Park neighborhood today.
Well, Mark, Tom, thank you guys for having me. I've listened to your show a few times. I purposely did not listen to the Mike Lasser one. No, just so a great show. Love what you're doing, and I love the three shows I did listen to. You really focus on operations. You focus on this as a business. You've mentioned that a few times throughout those shows, and that's what we do.
Awesome. So, yeah, I appreciate the kind words.
So I'll you can ask me questions. I really like this. I know you get in nitty gritty with some of your guests on nitty gritty operations. I love getting into that. I don't mind it, but I'd like this show to be a little bit more, if you guys can indulge me a little bit more wax philosophy a little bit, we can wax philosophic about our business, which is multifamily investing. And it's, I think over what we've gone through this past year and a half, I think we're going to look back at it as that time where multifamily investing took the next step, took the next level. There was this reality that I think a lot of investors out there that were playing in other spaces in real estate. And I have a theory about that. I want you guys to give me a chance. I want to be able to go over my balloon squeeze theory.
All right, let's do it.
By the end of the show. So you let me know when I can do that. But it is a class that I believe will take the next step. It's in the process of taking the next step and really shooting up from here. So I'll be happy to kind of get into that. But I know you have some questions.
So let's jump in. You talked about operating in a business. Let's talk about the philosophy. I guess let's start here. You had 400 units under your belt and you scaled to 2,000. Like, that's a huge number. Like, and you're already a huge operation. I guess, what was the drive to keep going? How are you still finding deals? How are you taking on that additional risk when a lot of people would probably just get comfortable there?
Okay, give me 2 minutes on this. First, I want to be able to tell my parents' story, the founders of the company. My mama and my dad was a union painter. My mom was an office cleaning lady in the city. They moved out here from Yugoslavia at that time, actually from Paris. They went to Paris for a few years and moved out here. Had four sons, 2 older brothers and 1 younger brother. They're all successful in the same business, in the same multifamily space. So my parents would work very hard. My dad was a visionary. He invested first in Albany Park, was his first building, and then he took a big step in Edgewater in the late 70s, early 80s. And at that time, that neighborhood was in a downswing. It was very challenging. And the big thing they did, and it really was instilled from the get-go, was we lived in the building, guys. We were a part of it. I would play with the neighbor kids. I grew up, born and raised in that Edgewater building, a 72-unit building. And it was just a part of our living that we were ingrained in the community from the get-go. So and that was my parents. My dad was he took advantage of the market. Because he was involved in the operations, and that's a secret sauce question there, right? Really being involved in operations, and you guys buy into that. And he grew the business up to 400 units. Unfortunately, he had a serious stroke, which forced him to retire, at least physically. But fortunately, his mind is still very strong, and he's been he's my rock up to this point. And he's been very helpful and given me a lot of pointers and these philosophies that I'm sharing now. So that's a big part. So now the question then is this, guys. I get involved in 2003. Yes, I graduated. Go Huskies, 2000. Broadcast journalism background. So if I wasn't doing this, I'd probably be doing something what you guys, pretending to do something you guys, I don't know, doing something. We'll see. Something in media most likely. But what really attracted me to the business was first trying to get into this business because it's, guys, at the end of the day, we want to make returns. We get it. because we want to be a self-viable business so we can support our families, but we also want to have purpose. And this is something that kind of grew into me, in that what we do is so important. What we do is God's work. And I'm not being facetious about it. It is, especially in the markets that you work in, we're dealing with workforce housing. And the neighborhoods that my parents were, they were bad neighborhoods. And they lived there, and they put skin in the game, they put emotional, physical, financial, every kind of skin you can find. And that's that's kind of what we have. So that said, I got involved in 2003. But here's the thing. I didn't get involved thinking, oh, I'm going to grow this business. I got 400 units. My parents have done. God bless them. They worked so hard. For the first 10 years, I was just focused on operations. I did not buy. If someone said to you, buy one apartment, I'd say, hell no, I got enough. I got 400 apartments I got to deal with. And it really wasn't until that 10th year, in 2013, I settled down and got married. Very inspiring wife. Obviously, she settled me down and focused me in the right directions. And I was still very involved in operations. But then I said, okay, I'm ready to grow. And I had a good team in place. And that's another thing that allows you to want to do this, guys. As you scale your businesses, you have to have people you can count on in your team that have the same vision of growth and pushing things. And basically in 2013 is where I started the growth. I bought my first, let's say, outside of the legacy property, 70 units in Edgewater. And we've basically gone through this roller coaster, not roller coaster, but this, let's say, spaceship shuttle. From 2013 till now, we've acquired 1,600 units in 8 years. Now, the question you asked myself, you probably gonna ask, okay, did I answer your question? I know you want to ask this idea of, so that's kind of the gist of the start, all right? Now, you can ask yourself, did I go into this thinking my goal was I want to go 1,000 units? Did I want to do 2,000 units? And if I went into that with that thinking, I'd completely be crashing and burn, because it's psychologically, it's actually not helpful. And for me, it's not for me because I'm not really hungry. I'm a money hungry person. I have to have that purpose. I have to be able to see this turn into that, hence success, right? So how I go into it is project per project. So you buy a building tomorrow. If you guys go buy a 10 unit, 20 unit, 5 unit, focus on that project being a success. And then with that, you take the next. Don't look at, I want to accumulate units. I want to accumulate supply. Don't do that, because you're going to cause, and I have friends and family that went into that thinking and they went upside down. They coughed it up. And that's, so that's something you just project per project. And then all of a sudden one day you wake up, holy cow. It helps to have a market that's at your back, pushing you forward. That helps. So, but then you have to be careful for when it doesn't push you back. And we had kind of a foreshadowing of it this past year, right? We're still working through it. So, which is probably the most challenging part of what I've gone through. My experience was this past 18 months. So, okay, ask me questions, because I can go on a riff for.
You bring up an awesome point, because I see a lot of people, they spend so much time getting their first building, and they focus on that first building being a success, and then it becomes a numbers game. And the second one, that they're focused, instead of focusing on the second one, they already bought the second one, but they're focused on the third and fourth one. What are some of the mistakes you saw friends and family make as they were looking down the road versus focusing on the current project being a success?
Yes, you have a question of, for example, you go into a market you're not aware of, and you take on a number of units, and ultimately it's really getting your hands dirty. Anyone that, you guys have mentioned this in the past, you have to treat what you're doing as a business. You have to look at it. There's a few different ways you do that. You do that on the management side, right? Just understanding your craft, perfecting your craft, being on top of operations. On the investment side, that's a business. How you run your balance sheet is a business. How much leverage you should take to grow your business. You're mentioning, Tom, this of how much leverage you can take. You want to be able to make sure you take enough, not too much, and not too little. When I hear stories of people saying I'm paid off, I'm like, okay, you're obviously not in the real estate business, right? You just have a paid off property, and God bless you, you made a good deal and you're cash flow, and that's it. But if this is a business for you, you got to know what leverage you put on every one of those properties. Because at the end of the day, I grew up, my parents, my dad specifically didn't like that, right? A lot of the old timers don't like that. They're used to paying it off. But so that was this question of, you have to balance it if you're going to make it really a business. So that's another aspect of things. There's how you manage your balance sheet. There's how you manage your operations. How you manage the supply that you have. We have all these different properties, different locations. I like to think I'm a little Amazon for my residents, for anyone that wants to live in Chicago. So they can come here, they want to walk up, they want a 4+1, they want a parking building, they want a heat included building, they want a washer dryer building. I have it for you. If you want to live up north from Uptown, Edgewater, Rogers Park, I have it for you. Law of three, guys. Law of three, focus. That's another thing. Focus. Have a focus. Have a niche. I see people also going there and say, I'm buying a building here. I'm buying a building here. I'm building one on the south side. I'm buying one on the west side. I'm buying one on the north side. To me, it doesn't work because on if you scale properties close enough together, you have benefits to economies of scale. And it's also kind of this hit and miss kind of sporadic shot, which doesn't focus the mind. And a lot of this is psychological. Okay, it's not just I'm going to make a return on that building. A lot of it is that whole thing, everything.
So Sal, let's talk about the law of three here in these neighborhoods, right? So we come up in Edgewater and Uptown in that area. Let's talk about it. I know the 60s, 70s extremely rough. How has it changed from 03? From the time you said, hey, I'm going to buy the first non-legacy building, what are some of the changes you've seen? And then why have you started to expand out a little bit as well?
Yeah, so let's focus on that. Good question. Edgewater, when I came in 2003, I graduated from college and lived in the building, the same apartment that we lived in. And it was an area still in flux. A lot of shootings here and there, a lot of loitering, a lot of hanging out. And it really was to the work of a lot of the building owners in that neighborhood. They got together. I imagine a good friend of mine owned a building, 2 murders in the span of 6 months. It was terrible. One was a resident got murdered by another resident. Another one was a janitor got murdered by an outside guy. In the span of 6 months, 2 blocks away from me. So there was this very kind of tenuous period in 2004, 2002, 2004, 2005. And it really focused us to say, okay, let's get together. Let's do the neighborhood walks. Let's be very vigilant. Let's get the aldermen involved. And you wake up one day, and all of a sudden, you wake up 5-6 years from now. And it's slowly but surely, that's what happens. There's a tipping point, guys. Malcolm Gladwell, you do enough, you wake up one day and be like, where in a good way. Edgewater was a challenging stretch. It became less and less challenging until one day you wake up now, you drive by like, holy cow. And those are the kind of neighborhoods, guys, that you want to be able to look at. You want to be able to spend the time there. That's the thing. For example, we then focused into Rogers Park because it was an opportunity there where we love the people, we love the area. The intangibles are excellent. The tangibles are excellent. Great people. They got the great transportation, great lakeside access, all of that stuff. And it's right next to Edgewater. And guess what? It's right next to Evanston, which is basically being next to Lincoln Park. All of a sudden, you're getting this little enclave of a stretch that has old-time operators, some of them operating better, some of them operating less, but they still have the property for a long time. And they want to be able to move on or find the best deal, and that's where our growth has been predominantly over the past 5-6 years. We still take on properties in Edgewater and Uptown, but Rogers Park is a place I just love Rogers Park as a place. Great people, great location, and just a lot of great properties. They're not the 4+1s. They're all beautiful walk-ups, courtyard properties. They're just gorgeous properties, and we've where the opportunity opens up. And there's a location north of Howard that some people would say, why are you investing there? Because it's one of it becomes a little, you have the shootings and stuff like that. And we've been in that neighborhood for the last 6-7 years, and one by one, we just keep working. I don't live there, but I go there every day, and slowly but surely, we work hard enough. Good energy I think energy is contagious, right? So good energy does the same thing as bad energy. So the more good energy you can put out there, the better.
So really what I'm hearing from you is putting some of the sweat equity into working with other landlords, housing providers, helping get to that tipping point of some of these neighborhoods. And then also capitalizing on the changing the guard, the owners that have owned it for 30, 40 years and coming in and seeking those out as opportunities has really been your secret here.
But keep in mind, those owners, they take their properties very personally. So they want to be able to see that you're serious about your business. So you show yourself that, hey, you're serious to continue their tradition of continuing to invest in their properties in every way. They'll look at, okay, this is a guy I want to take on my property a little bit for. So yeah, it builds upon itself.
Yeah, we'll comment on that as well. Like, and usually there's some sort of care for the building, right? Like I love walking, even on a smaller scale that we operate, love walking in a building where the masonry is done, the roof is done, the boiler is done. They just haven't touched the baths and kitchens. And it's like, that is tailor-made for opportunity, right? There's been care in this, and every dollar you spend is going to be something that a renter sees and appreciates.
Yes. You had Lee Kaiser, who's a great broker. Also, we've become friendly over the years until he screws me up. But Lee Kaiser, you had him on. So far, we've been good. And he'll tell you, those are those kind of things that you don't want to have to pay for. So those kind of deferred maintenance questions. So, you want to be able to just pay for stuff that the resident's going to see and renovate those, the kitchens and the baths and stuff. So yeah, that helps. Helps a lot.
So Sal, a lot of our listeners are probably, just house hacking their first deal. They might have 3 units, 10 units, somewhere in that range. What would you say to someone looking at on a much smaller scale? Hey, I have this 3 unit in Rogers Park. I have this, corner 4 unit. Do you feel that you could still be successful on a much smaller scale there? Or is there a minimum amount of infrastructure needed to make this work?
Guys, I'll say this now. I'm going to say it to you. I've said this plenty of times. I'm glad we're documenting this. There are people that come to me and say, "Oh, we're never going to make the deals our parents did 20 years ago, 30 years ago." And so it's like this level of like not giving up. So I'm going to buy Bitcoin. I'm just going to do something stupid, guys. If we find a property, this 3, 4, whatever it is, make sure you have a plan of return, right? I like to shoot for an in-place return of a 10% on my cash on in-place income. Right. I mean, why we've been able to grow, and the reason why we're able to grow and still keep the leverage points that banks really love is because we've been able to, over the last 7, 8 years, we've been able to hit 40, 30 to, depending on the deal, 35 to 45% annualized returns on all our properties. But in our space, we refinance and we never sell. So we're always refinancing. So and always pulling out equity and then using that equity for additional properties and so forth. So, and obviously putting the right amount of debt, not too much, not too little, because I look at debt as the same thing. I look at debt as the same as water, gas, electric, property taxes. That's how I look at debt. That's how I look at it. It's a cost, and make sure that you're not putting it a very high cost where it affects your returns. So, wait, did I answer your question?
Is there a general rule of thumb you would say? Because that's the first thing our listeners are going to ask is like, hey, what LTV is a good rule of thumb?
I have a very good friend. He's a very good friend. He's a very successful broker. And now he's looking at place income and do multifamily. He's done some single family houses, right? And now he's looking at how do I get into that 3, 4? I want to start building some apartments and building a supply. And I say to him, first and foremost, look at the deal and just do the math, right? And make sure you're taking debt, because he's had a habit of just paying things cash and then making a return or flipping it and making 20, 30% on his cash and call it a day. Problem with flipping, guys, sometimes you end up spinning your wheels, because the idea of what happened, the model I like of buy, hold, operate is you're never selling the cow. The Indian societies and where I came from, the cow was a big deal when you sold it, right? It was a big deal. You're basically giving up the lifestyle. You're basically not taking the control in your hands. You're giving the control to someone else when it comes to your food supply. So you never sold the cow. Same thing here. I would never sell the cow. meaning those properties, unless it was a property that was out of my territory, a stupid offer on it. And I said to myself, I don't mind if I lose another 20-30% of value in the next 5 years, because I'm going to do something else with it. But here's the idea of always being in the game. So here, you have guys that they sell, they buy, they sell, they flip, and then they buy, they sell, they flip, and they go bigger, and then they get their head chopped off. Right? You've been successful, smaller, you go, blah, 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 and all of a sudden you go bigger, head chopped off. And then you have nothing to show for all that work, right? So this idea of operate, increase value, you increase 20% of income on a property, you'll probably double your money of equity that you put down. You take that, you refinance that, go to the next property. That property, though, will cash flow. The next property, and so forth, as opposed to selling that property, putting it to something else, and that's where it gets a little risky in my mind, because you don't have anything to show for it when the music stops. And sometimes the music stops.
Yeah. So this sounds like ironic that I'm saying this, but I agree 100%. As someone who does a lot of transaction, a lot of flipping, the buy and hold is just, I'm always exposed, right? Even when I'm making money, it's going right back out there. And then I'm getting taxed like an asshole every single time. So I agree with this point 100%. The other point I want to make is everyone's always looking for the deal, like this great deal. Even if you buy and I'm not saying this is a savvy investment, but just to make a point, even if you buy a turnkey 3-unit building somewhere and just sit on it for 10 years and operate it, and just assume whatever, I'm going to get a 2-3% appreciation. It could go up, it can go down, but over time, real estate gives you a 5% a year or whatever. And the tenants pay the mortgage down. And you look at that just 10 years later, and it's like, holy crap. Like that was really good. That's all. No value add play, no silly appreciation, just playing the game. And it's like, wow, this is when you get out of that 1-year time frame, 2-year time frame, and just look at it long term. It's so freaking powerful.
And I agree with that to an extent. One thing, don't let a broker tell you buy this thing in 20 years you're going to make money.
Correct.
Okay, so there's this level.
This isn't a savvy business investment, but I'm trying to make the point that the time is on your side.
Yeah, exactly. And there's this question of you mentioned it, in the game. Be in the game. Don't get out the game. So by having a property that cash flows, which is the most important thing, if you can get the returns at a 10% on cash return, right? And in this case, a turnkey operation, a turnkey property is great because you don't have to do much on the maintenance and on the renovation and everything's there. You should, over time, have that 10% plus return and potentially more if you push, the market continues to appreciate. There's talk about inflation. So this idea of what is a great inflation hedge? Our business is a great inflation hedge, right? It is a space that you can pass on inflation to, right? So, and what is the number one driver of inflation, Mark? Wages, right? So that's what we're always looking at, wages. So this idea of wages continue to go up, great. Guess what? We'll get the benefits of that. People will be able to accept a 5% increase because they're getting a 5% increase on their wage. So there is that level of, just be in the game. I agree. I would tell all your audience, have a property where you're making cash flow, making return, and if you can take that cash flow and buy another property, do that and keep it simple. And obviously, you want to try to hit a home run or two. It'll juke you up even further. And a home run is, if you can get a 30. Deals I've made in the past, 50% annual IRR return, right? You get a deal where all of a sudden you get all your money out in a year and a half. Right, and 25% equity, and those are the deals that really propel you forward and allow you to be at whatever number I'm at right now. So and that's it. One.
So Sal, real tactical question I want to ask on IRR, because it's a component that we look at as well. When you're doing the analysis of, let's say, like, hey, in 3 years I'm going to refi, 5 years, whatever that timeline is, what assumptions do you make on NOI increase, whether it be rental increase, improving operations? Like, do you do like a 2-3% a year type of thing? And what do you do about appreciation? Because as good or as bad as you can operate, that number blows up the equation one way or another. If you assume property's going to go up 3% a year, 8% a year, whatever, like that really changes that IRR. And you see it when people are trying to get you to invest in syndications, like they can get pretty goofy with those assumptions there.
Yeah, well, Mark, Tom, Bottom line is just make sure you're investing in a rising market. So no, I think no. I mean, there is this level. You mentioned it earlier in the show. You have to go into a deal with a margin of safety, right? So you have to go into a deal thinking that things are not going to project out the way you think, or they'll project less. Can the deal still be viable? Can you still cash flow through it and still make a return? Because the worst thing that you want is to negative cash flow. That's a red flag. That's oh my gosh, unless you have another business that actually makes money that's going to get you through this, then that's another question. But if this is your business, yes, that's a big problem. So yeah, I think you have to be mindful and yeah.
Cool. So let's talk about operations a little bit, because you got 50 employees, right? That's a pretty big operation, especially all located in like a centralized area here. What would you say is the I'll call it breaking point? Like, what is the hardest part right now? Is it maintenance? Is it leasing up? Is it acquisitions? Like where's the machine breaking? Breaking is probably not the right word, but where's the break point?
Good question. I think first in our business in Becovic, we have a management arm. Well, we feel like we have comparative advantages. First, it's management. One of our comparative advantages is we self-manage, we're operators, right? So we're not just an investor, we are an operator. We are very close to our properties. That's where sometimes people may give themselves a disadvantage. I'm friends with a lot of these third-party operators and their companies, but when you and I tell young people that start this business and they're giving their property out to a third party, I'm telling them why. This is fine. You probably want to get your foot underneath you or your feet. It's not going to really get you the kind of know-how that you need. Unless you're trying to understand the know-how, right? And I don't know, Mark, you're in that space, right? You're in third-party operations, right? So, right. So, idea is, but that's if you want to make a business. I mean, some doctors will call you or lawyers, and they'll say, "Operate my building," and that's fine because they have a day job, right? They're not trying to be in the space.
I agree with you, Sal, 100%. I tell anyone that's ever heard me talk, and my partners say when I say this, but I think everybody should self-manage their properties to start, especially if you have the time and you're close enough. So, but I mean, you learn more in their first couple of years self-managing than you will ever if you don't ever self-manage. So, if
you're serious about making it a business, right? There's some people. Listen, I just met a guy recently in logistics. Cash cow, right? And he just bought a couple of properties, which is another thing, which I love our business guys. Once again, we're like, patting each other, high-fiving each other about our business, because it is a reserve asset, real estate asset business. It is where everyone and their mom, if they make money somewhere else, will want to put their money here. So us being experts in our field makes us more valuable, right, to these people, those people. Also, it makes our liquidity even so much more powerful. And obviously, the more liquidity you have in a market, the higher those markets appreciate, right? So going back to my comparative advantage. I'll sometimes go tangents a little bit to get more info. So keep me. So there's the comparative advantage of management, right? We're in the mix. We have a full office team focused on leasing, service, field, and everything, right? And that is, there's its own challenges there, guys. I mean, especially this past year and a half, we were one thing I've gotten over the pandemic was it really made me say, wow, what I do is very important, right? When you have your residents day in, day out living and not just living in your product, but living in your service and day in, day out using it to the highest levels. Right. It really was humbling, and it really was something that it was pretty challenging for our team on the main because we're not just property managers, but we're sometimes property psychologists. Right, guys? Yep. So we're dealing with a lot of, residents that are stressed. We have our own team that you have to be able to make sure you comfort and give them the tools. So it wasn't easy. And, to this day, it's challenging. But that's why what we do is also something that, a lot of people don't want to do, which, it's just part of one of those reasons why. So we're focused on management. Then we have our own construction team. So I have a GC license. So all our permits we run through my EMS Builders GC license, and I have subs underneath me that I sub out all my construction. And I have a core of 5-6 guys that are directly paid to be able to help me do my returns and my renovations. But for bigger projects, we'll get other subs involved. And we turn these units. So we're about to finish the projects on East Lake Terrace, which was right on the water. Gorgeous. We're proud of it. Coming to market. It's right on the northern. I'd be happy to give you guys a tour one of these days. Northeastern, right on the tip on the lake. There's 3 beaches on the water. East Lake Terrace. We're about to put out 11 unit development, full just the works, and that's coming to market this September, next month, tomorrow. So construction, we have control of that. And because we have a scale, right? The contractors trying to get a sub's attention these days, good luck, right? So having a queue of work for them is something that gets their attention and allows you to affect. Then obviously the bigger you get, guys, the bigger balance sheet you get. Banks love you. They love you, especially after seeing their hotel business go to S and go to their office business hold their breath and their retail once again wondering what's going to happen. We perform for them, guys. We perform for them. So, and this idea, the bigger you are, the more value and the more let's say debt you have with them, they're going to treat you better, and especially if you're managing that well. And at a leverage point, in our case, you try to keep in that, you keep late 50s, early 60s, 60% leverage rate. You don't want to be less. 60s are good. Keep yourself in that range. You can weather, like you said earlier, Tom, you want to be able to weather when things go bad, right? You don't want to be at a situation where we lose 10% on the market, or all of a sudden your property just can't cash flow, right? Because you put too much debt on it, right? So those are the things that we look at comparative advantage: management, construction, finance, balance sheet. And we go to town, and obviously we're able. The more deals you do, the more calls you get from a broker being their first shop. Right? They say, hey, before I go to market here, Sal, what do you think? And I'll tell them, I'm a good buyer from the seller's perspective because I'm a good operator. Meaning I can get water property, hence I'll pay you more, right? Well, if there's some operators that aren't so good, they're not gonna pay you as good as you want them to get paid for, right? Because they're limited to how much they feel like they can operate the product. So yeah, that's it.
So you mentioned some of the other industries that might be struggling right now. Along the journey, though, have you had the shiny object syndrome? Like, have you dabbled in, maybe we should go do retail. Maybe we should go do this. Or what are some guilty pleasures you've looked at?
I 2008, I bought Wachovia. The financial stocks killed me. So that was one. I dabbled. When it comes to other stuff, no. Outside of real estate, no. Retail, no. Condos, no. In 2009, we never played that space. A lot of operators that really got hurt because they played in that space. And once again, that's a space. I don't like playing in a space that my only strategy is I got to sell it. Right? And that's for everything. So even now, you look at am I invested? I'm invested in. I have something in Robinhood, right? I got some playing with whatever stock here and there. The reason why I do that is not because I'm trying to win the lottery, but it just makes me engaged with the market, right? And that's one thing that I really like to be able to put out to the audience too. We have to be very vigilant on the market and on the economy and on what the Fed is doing and what treasuries are doing, because our business is very important. We're basically next to banking. We're basically next head to head with banking, right? You have to be really involved in how the economy's doing. So that would be something that I know that's going to be one of my questions at the end. I'll answer that, what I'm reading and what I'm keeping on top of. So,
way to leave the cliffhanger out.
Yeah. Don't forget about the balloon squeeze. I got the balloon squeeze theory. So whenever you're ready to, I don't know how much time we got.
Let's do
Mark.
it. No.
Are you in charge, Mark? Are you in charge of the clock?
No, go for it. Let's do the balloon squeeze right now.
So here's how I look at it. Imagine everyone close your eyes. Close your eyes. You don't have to.
A lot of our listeners are driving.
The audience, the ones that are driving, no, don't close your eyes. Imagine you're in a room. You walk in and you got a whole bunch of balloons, all kinds of colors. Right? Pick your color. Take one of those balloons. And imagine that balloon is the multifamily real estate balloon, right? The other balloon is the hotel balloon. It's like limpy. The industrial balloon is like a really big, useless, boring balloon. It's like white. Well, the multifamily is like rainbow colors. It's fun. Right? Industrial's great, right? But it's just boring as hell, right? It's a boring, but it's been one of those performers, right? God bless Amazon. So you got the industrial balloon, boring white balloon. You got the nice shiny, different fuchsia color, a multifamily. You got the hotel. So anyway, okay, everyone are filled in. The family is nice and full, right? What is the energy filling that balloon? It's the Fed, right? It's the monetary policy. It's the other people. So it's the other balloons, maybe the energy that from the hotel side coming into that, right? It's people, instead of filling up that hotel balloon, they're filling up the multifamily balloon, right? So imagine that. So all these balloons, different real estate asset class. Actually, we say asset classes of all kinds, right? Then you got the stock market balloons. We're not going to get to that. So you have this big multifamily balloon. And now this is kind of what's interesting, what's going on with the multifamily space in America. We are in this balloon squeeze moment right now. And I don't know about you guys, I've never gotten, and I have friends and family who are invested in Florida, Nashville, Tennessee, those markets that are getting the other end of the squeeze. So what's happening right now is you have this balloon, and let's say there's this metaphorical hand squeezing one side. So you're squeezing this and it's coming out this one. So where do you think Chicago is respective to this big balloon? Is it the squeezed part, or is it the other side of the part?
The squeezed part.
What, Tom?
We are the less desirable part.
Oh, we're the squeezed part, right? So, which, you know what? I want to be in that space. Because the squeezed part's so good. And the reason, now what's squeezing? What we've gone through this last year and a half, guys, right? What we've gone through when it comes to the perceived, the real, when it comes to crime issues or those kind of questions. Also, this what we're going through when it comes to fiscal concerns of the state, right? Fiscal concerns of the city, right? And then there's additional concerns of you have concerns about just getting out of the state, right? So we're getting squeezed. And on this side, it gets bigger. So I want to be in this part. And because in this part, I'm a believer that this is temporary. Because the city's too strong. The city's too much capital, right? And trust me, if you didn't feel, and let's have a therapy session, guys. If we didn't have a period last year to have some level of doubt, which and it's fair. It's fair. And let doubt creep in sometimes. Say, holy cow, what's happening right now? Right? I mean, I'm fully invested here. I got nowhere to go, right? But imagine the guy is not fully invested, right? And he can pick his place. But then I drive into the city and I see, holy cow, how beautiful and how gorgeous. And we're just going through a period that, unfortunately, guys, I mean, I remember last year, the only way, guys, I don't want to get a little bit, I'm trying to not get political, but the only way we could get together was we couldn't have a beer together. The only way we could get together is we protest. That was the reality of what took place last year, right? And we had good reasons to protest, no doubt. But so we had a very unique point in our history that we went through and that we're still kind of getting out of. So I want to be in the squeeze part. And that means I think telling your audience there are going to be a lot of opportunities even now because assessments are coming out like they've come on Rogers Park, really high, right? So, and there's going to be a question of, holy cow, and I have had some longtime owners talk to me, and we've been in conversation, and the assessments are going to be coming out for Lakeview probably in the next couple of months. So you'll have you guys have anything in Lakeview?
Do. Yep.
Yeah. So you'll have your nice shock and awe. So there are squeezes and that's another thing. Obviously, the assessments, that tax question. So that said, that's what's happening. Now the question then is, does it pop? That's another question. But that, yeah. So guys, look out for the Great Balloon Squeeze on Amazon. The book is coming out in late September.
Written by Sal?
Of course, I'm ghostwriting it. What do you?
Let's talk about that for a second, though. Out of all those headwinds, so I agree with you. Like, my competitive advantage is being here and knowing the neighborhoods and having contacts here, right? So even though there's headwinds, like all those other examples I've just laid out, tell me to stay here, right? Like just that in itself, I feel is an advantage. But out of all those headwinds, which one scares you the most? It sounds like you're not scared. You're staying, you're growing. But if there's anyone, if you had to pick, taxes, the financial situation of the state and the city, the politics, like which one would you say, man, this one really don't know how to battle?
Obviously we have the tale of two cities, and it is there. There's no doubt about it. You go to the south side, go to the north side, and obviously you'll probably have an investor investing on the south side. God bless them, because that's necessary. You asked me to be in that market? No, because I have enough to deal with on the north side. But the tale of two cities of this economic disparity or this difference, which then creates the kind of crime and desperation and that causes the kind of issues that have happened. More, let's say, pronounced a little over the last year, but in my markets, in my neighborhoods, they were happening pre-pandemic, right? They're happening now, and they were happening 3 years ago. So we've been challenged of that for many years. So that is a big question there, and I would say there has to be this question of, am I willing to pay more taxes to go in a fund for safety, security schools? Heck yeah. Put me down. Open up a fund. Safety, security, schools. Put a separate. If someone have a plan that actually can provide the kind of security when it comes to financial security, there's food security in a lot of these neighborhoods. The safety. A lot of these neighborhoods that are having issues have a safety problem, right? I think this, and then obviously part of that is also the cops. The cops have to be trained well. Poor guys, we give them a hard time sometimes, but there has to be. I would put a fund to make sure they're being trained properly. A lot of these guys are getting exhausted and they're not being trained properly. So that's going to be that. So that's another question. Could I see myself saying, yeah, set up a separate tax to go into that fund? No doubt. Put me down. But reality of it, we're already paying for it, right? In our taxes. We're already doing that. But is there something there that can, so yeah, to answer your question, that's the biggest question that we have is, fund the whole tax question of the viability of the state of Chicago, guys. Chicago is flush. Okay. There's no question about when it comes to of the city. That's what bugs me, is that we should be able to get ahead of this already. We have so much capital. There's so much wealth in Chicago. Why is this happening? That's a huge red flag to me. Something has to be done to create, to really make this, bring this inequality closer together. There has to be something. And is there enough? Are we not paying enough taxes? Are we not using it well? That's a question that is kind of over my head. But yeah, that's a concern. That's it's a viable concern. But is it? But in reality, we're a lot better than we were even on that front, outside of the anomaly of last year when it comes to the safety and the crime of our city. I think I'd like to think that we're at the point now of tipping point. Hopefully they're close to, people starting to, okay, the whole defund the police talk. Come on, guys. Come on. What is that? I mean, that's not, come on. The truth is always in the middle. So talking on edges doesn't get the work done. So hopefully we're going to support our police. We'll also support the communities that are having these that don't have these opportunities, and you can do both. It's not one or the other. So yeah, but that is a big concern. That's the biggest concern, no doubt, no question. Even in my markets up north, same thing. I'm not immune, because I have issues up north. The city has too many issues, and especially when you have the issues in the core having issues in the downtown areas. No, that's a big red flag, for sure.
So this rolls into our final question before we head to wrap up. Rogers Park Builders Group, NBOA. I mean, to talk to us about kind of your experience with them and what you guys are doing kind of going forward to probably as a group to grow.
I think the rule was we have to say Mike Glasser a couple of times.
We already said it once, so that'd be two. So I think we hit our quota.
You just said it once? Okay, good. We filled that quota. Obviously, back to Rogers Park. What I really love, made me want to continue to invest in Rogers Park, is they had a Rogers Park Builders Group. And the fact, and to see these longtime owners in that group, reminding my parents, right? They're really invested, skin in the game, not just financially, but emotionally and psychologically in every way. So when I saw them, like, holy cow, what a great neighborhood. So that was a great thing. And then this idea of MBOA, that is this idea of having every one of these neighborhoods having these groups that they can talk to, and kind of sometimes, Mike said in his interview when you had with you, kind of treat each other as therapy, like free therapy with each other, right? Going through issues in their neighborhood. To have these kind of groups in these different neighborhoods, but then you still need something overhead. There needs to be an umbrella. And that's why I think MBOA is such an important the setup that needs to be continued to invest in. We need to continue to fundraise for. I've tried to give some help. I think this idea of all of us and all these different groups making the MBOA stronger, because they're actually ones really speaking on behalf of the little guy. And we're little guy investors here. We're not some big downtown investor. We're all a lot of our properties, which I love, is they're smaller. They're 50 units and less, right? They're all smaller buildings. And I think MBOA can be a great voice. They've been a great voice when it comes to representing the state through a lot of the legislation out there that unfortunately sometimes doesn't need a fuller picture on things. So that's where I think we've been very successful on. And Mike and his team at the MBOA have been very, very, very big for it. And I think that's something hopefully we can continue to support, guys.
It makes you feel very confident looking at what's happened the last few years between the MBOA being that umbrella for all the neighborhood. Then you put on top of it this CAA and their power. Then you throw in the Illinois realtors and what they could bring and their knowledge and their access to government. So those three are powerhouses that really gives me a confidence for the smaller landlords. So it's pretty exciting to see that.
No doubt. I think all three of those organizations play very important roles. No doubt. And I think us getting more involved in all of them is a great idea.
Yeah. All right. We're going to wrap up here. You ready for your questions?
Let's do it.
All right. You've kind of answered this, but in a short form, like, what's been your competitive advantage? Like, how have you been able to achieve this when people wish they could be in your shoes right now?
I'm glad you asked me that question that way. Do not think that way. I really want all of us not thinking of it. I mean, anyone that thinks this idea of being in someone else's shoes, this level of, I want you not to be in my shoes or want to be in my shoes. I want you to be inspired by me and what I'm doing. And I want to be inspired by you and what you're doing. Guys, you inspire me today, what you're doing right now. This is important work you're doing right now. Putting a podcast together and connecting into a lot of other minds in this business, right? And connecting us. I've been very happy to see that there are people in my life outside of my parents and outside of my father that have become inspirations. They're my peers. I can rattle them off. I mean, I'll throw a couple off now. I mean, there's people, young people that just want to be invested. Like, for example, Cedar Street, Alex Samoilovich, if you could give him a call one of these days, he's done an excellent job. And he came up with a flats brand style living. This about 7-8 years ago. And when he started doing that in my neighborhoods, I'm like, holy cow, what an inspiration. I didn't look at my old, no, that's something we have to get. We have to be very open to letting ourselves be inspired, not letting ourselves be jealous or envious. It's obviously it's a human thing, but allow yourselves to be inspired. Open your eyes to what they're doing, and hopefully it's going to, you'll start doing it too, right? And they'll look at what you're doing, and they'll be hopefully inspired by you. So that's, I think, going to be my additional answer outside of the technical stuff about management, construction, and just balance sheet, is just open yourself to be inspired by each other. And there's many ways we can be inspired. But Tom, how do you like that answer?
That is awesome.
Yeah, I like it.
I'm inspired. Keep it going.
That's why I asked, buddy. I asked because I wanted you to.
It's a circle.
I wanted you to be on record.
I love it.
So what's one piece of advice you would tell someone that is yet to buy their first property here in Chicago?
Don't be in a hurry. Look around. Look at a lot of properties. Okay? Look at a lot of rent rolls and a lot of financial statements, right? Look at them. Understand what it takes to just look at them. I mean, the more you see the opportunity, there'll be plenty of opportunities out there, and just familiarize yourself. Don't put pressure on yourself, okay? Because at the end of the day, guess what? It's not a Bitcoin.
Yeah, fall in love with the process. Fall in love with the process.
Yes, fall in love with the process, and they're human beings living in that thing. So you have to manage the damn thing. It's not easy, right? So that's be patient.
What do you do for fun?
Also, don't rate here yourself. Also, you have to make a move too. So if the deal makes sense, it's making a return, you're willing to get your hands dirty. I'll say if you're not willing to get your little hands dirty, then just trade. Trade GameStop if you want. A GameStop stock. I mean, but for sure.
All right. Good answer. What does the great Sal do for fun?
I have a 3-year-old. That's enough, right? So obviously, he's a little guy, and when it comes to what I consume, like I said earlier, understanding the market and the economy and reading stuff. So the question of what I read, I try to read a lot. I listen a lot. So I'm a big fan of The Economist. You guys ever listen to The Economist? It's a magazine. Mm-hmm. I don't read it, guys. I'm not that nuts. It's an audio version, which goes on the app. Excellent. It really gives you a nice sense of the whole world. And I'm kind of a newsy, current affairs kind of guy. So I like to know what everything's going on politically and everywhere. But on the business side, economic side, how things work is so important to me when it comes to the economy. All right, that's so The Economist I highly suggest, and obviously family time. And other than that, I don't have a vote habit. I don't have a gambling habit. So other than that, it's pretty simple.
Not yet.
But I'm 43, Tom. I mean, when do things start going bad? I mean, I haven't gotten Harley yet, so I'm not, my wife's not freaking out about my midlife crisis. So far, so good.
All right. Besides yourself, name one person in your local network you would highly recommend to other investors as a quality resource.
Obviously, we talked about it earlier, but obviously the MBOA, the neighborhood. I said I always forget what the neighborhood building owners alliance. Right, I got it right.
You
right,
got
Tom?
it.
You memorized
Correct.
it by now. So obviously that group, Mike Glass, who was in that group, or any group that you can find that's close to you. I mean, no doubt. I think those are the kind of start local. We're not trying to change the world here, guys. It starts in your neighborhood, and then it starts in your house, in your neighborhood, and then from there. So let's start there. People want to change the world, Tom. I just say start in your house.
I dig it. Get ingrained in that community. So, Sal, thank you so much. You provided a ton of value to our listeners. How can they learn more about you? And is there any way they can provide value to you?
I'd say the value to me is obviously if I see you, say hi. You know, I'm a friendly guy.
Nice and easy. Look at that.
That was the simplest response you provided all day, and it was the last one. Like you're ready to wrap yourself, it sounds
Yes.
like.
Oh, man, that was awesome. All right. So we touched on Rogers Park a little bit. So I got a Rogers Park specific question for the Chicago Fact. So this former first lady was actually born in Rogers Park. And it's multiple choice for you, obviously. Was it Betty Ford, Lou Hoover, Edith Wilson, or Michelle Obama? Mark, who you going with?
Edith Wilson.
Sal, who you going with?
No, it wasn't Michelle Obama. She was on the South Side. So Edith Wilson. Who's the other one?
Betty Ford or Lou Hoover?
Gosh. This is a guess. Betty Ford.
Yeah, Betty Ford. Mark, if I would have given you, she met her husband at the University of Michigan while he was playing football, would you have figured it out?
I would have figured it out. Yeah.
Betty Ford. Really?
Yeah, they quickly moved out of here. They didn't have the community ties like you do in Rogers Park.
Nope. All right. That was awesome. What a great show. Sal, Tom, that was awesome. Listeners, before you hang up, please leave us a 5-star review, refer us to a friend, and then go to our website. We have our 100th episode recording that we're doing live at Avondale Bowl on October 14th. I think we got 60 tickets as right now already sold. I think there's limited tickets. I think we're only selling about 100. So grab those tickets, and we're looking forward to that night. It's going to be a good time. We're going to record the 100th episode right in front of everybody. So, Sal, if you haven't grabbed a ticket, we're expecting you to
I love it. That's exciting.
Go on there now and get it, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, guys.
I love what you do. I love what you do, guys. Great job. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Right. Thanks, all. We'll see you next time.
Take care.